What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about armor mesh. Armor mesh is a new hand woven style knot mesh. Comes in two different styles. There's the Pegasus, which is thicker, and then the spider wire, which is thinner. Incredibly cool stuff. Very, very innovative, very unique, and just super cool. All right, let's go. All right, so Armor Mesh was, I believe it was released at LaxCon, this past LaxCon. I was not there, and I saw this on social media quite a bit. Someone reached out to me and said, you should review this, and then they sent a message to the guy, and then he reached out to me saying, yeah, I'd love to get it in your hands. I was like, oh, hell yeah, man, that stuff looks cool. So he sent over 4 pieces, Pegasus, spider wire, and then these two. And in my communications with him, he was like, it's a bit of a challenge. There's a learning curve to it, but you'll be able to do it. And when I first took it out of the package, I was like, yeah, I don't really even know where to start. But it's just because your mind is perceiving this thing as so different than what you're used to. Normal mesh, 10 diamond mesh. We're very used to that. We're very used to that format, even from a long time ago. Pre hard mesh, it was just soft mesh, and it was pretty standard in its format. This is unique. This is new. This is it's like a knot mesh. I believe it's 1 string. Don't hold me to that. It could be more than one, but it seems like it's 1 string. And from what I can tell on the packaging, it says it's handmade. So, having made a lot of knot mesh, I hate to say and sound cocky, but I think I made the first knot mesh. People have said, like, I made that knot mesh for TLN Willet String, and then made a couple of videos on it, a lot of posts on Instagram, and people do it way better now. People do use different knots, but it's the same idea. And then about a year later, STX came out with their knot mesh, and then people were like, "Oh, you stole that from MedStar." They're like, "No, we've been working on it a while." Whatever, back and forth. I didn't care. But then a lot of people, well, I wouldn't say a lot, a few people reached out and were like, no, we used to make knot mesh in the 80s. Okay, maybe you did. I don't know. But nobody ever had proof. Nobody had pictures of the mesh they made. So whatever. I think I'm the first documented. Lax Daddy Wes, about 3 months after I did my knot mesh, he started doing it and posting pictures of it. And then people were like, Lax Daddy Wes did it before you. You guys remember Lax Daddy Wes? He had some good videos. What happened to that guy? But he, at Lax Daddy, was like, yeah, no, I got the idea from Red Star. And if you look at the posts on Instagram, mine were first. I don't really care about that. I was getting dragged into arguments because I was a subject of the argument. Whatever. I don't care who's first. But this is and people now who are still doing knot mesh, incredible. Lock's Knot, Monster, those things. His knot mesh is insane. But this is a style of knot mesh. It's just a really unique, innovative approach with awesome materials. I'm a huge fan of this stuff. Aesthetically speaking, it's super pleasing to the eye. It just looks great. And it can't be easy to make. It sells for $37. Which seems steep for a piece of mesh, but I've had this in here for 2 months. Probably 2 months. I think I did these on the same day. And they don't show any wear. A little dirty, but not even really that dirty. Just because I've been on the bounce back. I haven't been picking up ground balls or anything with it. But yeah, but it seems like it's going to be durable. Its strength to weight ratio is apparently 10 times stronger than steel. It's very light. Apparently it floats on water, which, that's light. It's 100% hydrophobic, which probably also helps it float. But the, the durability, a lot of that, I think, in the long run, comes from its hydrophobic properties. Because, when things get wet and then dry and then wet and then dry and then wet, and they deteriorate. It's just how it works. Even with rocks. So being hydrophobic, 100% hydrophobic, that it is going to lengthen its life, and that's a good thing. It seems like this is the spider wire. It seems super fragile. It's these strings are thin. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. But, I pounded the heck out of this thing and played a lot of wall ball. And it, honestly, it hasn't changed at all. All right, so let's get into the thing that most people talk about is like stringing. And I've seen comments on Instagram. It's like, well, I got a piece and I cannot figure it out. And the Armor Mesh YouTube channel, there was, back when I strung these up, there was one video on it. There was one video that I watched that showed the guy stringing it. And the thing and I was stressed out. I'm like, dude, I don't know. What am I even doing? What do I? And he said in the course of the video, as I was trying to string and he was talking, he said, you just don't overthink it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm an overthinker. So I said, all right, let's just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. And so I started with K's, just knots, I don't know, 5 knots, skipping one row. You don't really want to call them diamonds. At first I was like, well, are you allowed to skip? You don't skip diamonds in mesh stringing, so maybe I'm not supposed to skip here either. But you totally can. And that's the trick, is you skip rows, diamonds. And as you skip them, you don't want to skip too many in a row. Like at most you skip 2. I skip 2 as I started pocket placement. For the most part, you skip 1 row in the mesh for every sidewall hole. Obviously depending on the head. This is a PAL Pioneer, the first one. And it's got a lot of sidewall holes. But, it's really just you're going to have to go through at least one side, and kind of figure out where you want your pocket placed and that kind of stuff. But like right here, no, you're not going to be able to see it. But right here, I skip two rows, and it pops off a little bit, but it doesn't negatively impact the pocket at all. So that's the trick. And I used just knots. I tied off. Top string, I hit every hole. I wasn't really sure where to anchor it in the mesh, so I just went around the little teardrop loops on each one and locked them all in place. It's a really nice tight top string, or tight top section of the head. Decent channel. It pulls down pretty tight. It looks shallow, but it's not. It's right at legal. But it's there's so much motion in it because these are like free-flowing independent diamonds. They're not diamonds, but the connectivity between the sections there's a lot of give. There's a lot of give and take, and you pull it in one spot and it changes in another spot. It's really interesting. So I sat here with my pocket pounder. DC Dips pocket pounders. These things are unreal. Video coming soon. I love them. But you just watch it react, and it's really, really impressive. There's a lot happening. And so I haven't put shooters in. I thought for sure, because it feels like I like a little bit of whip, and this just feels so smooth that I'm like, yeah, that's going to sail. I'm going to sail this over the goal, or the bounce back, over the fence, over the park next door. It's gone. But like this one, it throws a little higher than I like, but I didn't put shooters in because I really wanted to feel what the mesh was doing. But it's not nearly as what's the opposite of whip? I say sail. I sailed a ball, but you can't say saily. So it's not nearly as saily as I would have thought. And what's happening is as the ball moves through the pocket, things are changing in different parts. And what's happening is you can see as it gets up here, it's getting a little bit of hang, right? That you don't see here. You don't see, like you can see whip in certain sticks, mesh sticks. You can see that, yeah, that's going to be a whippy stick. And then once you get your hand in there, even if you're not pressing hard, you can feel the hang here. There's nothing. So as it slides, right here, you see that. It creates a little bit of its own tension here at the release point because things are changing here. I'm probably over-explaining it and not doing that very well. You really have to get your hands on it to see, but it's incredibly smooth release, and I thought I might hate it, the release, because of, I like a little bit of whip, but it gives you a little bit of whip. So yeah, I may add shooters in here. Hold is good, just because it's so shifty. You think about your ball. I'm going to keep using this. It's nice. Your ball here, when you're horizontal, getting into a passing position, that triple threat, passing, shooting, dodging position, and then you pull it up to maybe go one-handed, the ball slips, or, it slides down, shifts down, I should say. And now you're dealing with this low pocket, but it's so shifty. There's so much movement that hold is there. Obviously, if you're running straight out after a ground ball, not doing anything, a check's going to pop it out. But that's true with any stringing, unless it's really illegal. But if I'm one-handed, if I come up with the GB here, it sits here. As soon as I get up into that vertical cradle, look at that. It just sits so low and just settled in. Really, really nice. And then I get into that triple threat, shoulder cradle. It's here. And then shoot. It's just, I love it. I love it. I know I'm over-explaining it, and I know I'm not doing that well, but whatever. So this is the Pegasus, and it's thicker. It's just thicker string. I don't know what this string is. It doesn't feel like sidewall. It's probably some kind of special stuff, because if you did this with sidewall, like my knot mesh, when I do this kind of thing, it hurts. It hurts the knuckles. But this is like soft. It's so soft. So I don't know what the string is, but it's nice. So every connection point, they've got these little teardrop loops that come through and make another one for the next row. Everything's independent, and so there's a lot of movement. So there's a lot of movement in the pocket, which you don't get quite so much with mesh. And even though they're independent and move freely of each other, they also work in conjunction with each other. So, you're low, you're cradling one-handed low, all the tension here is evenly distributed throughout the pocket. And then you shift up, and the same thing's happening down here. No weird bagging, nothing. Everything works in unison while being independent. Very, very cool. And if you are a stringer, you kind of owe it to yourself to pick up at least one piece, probably both, to try it, because it's so unique and it's so different and really, really good. I have not seen anybody playing with it around here in California. I think I saw a picture of Tahoka using it. That's an impressive vote of approval. That guy knows what he's doing. But I would like to get this into more hands around me. I may string these other pieces up. But yeah, so I may string those up in some loaners to get kids some, get some real on-field feedback, see what they think. Anyway, this stuff is fantastic, guys. I'm a big fan of this. I think it's innovative. It's so unique and just cool looking. That stuff is cool. Big fan. All right, guys, go check out armormesh.net. Pick up a piece, pick up two. And if you string it up, post it. I love seeing what people are doing. I've seen strung to the inside. I was like, because lately I've been stringing most of my sticks to the inside, but I started and I'm like, oh, that's just going to confuse me. Oh, one tip, with mesh, it's super easy to match a pattern. If you go down one side and you're like, yep, that's going to work, and then you do the other side. This, you end up doing a lot of counting and like a lot of following the row across to make sure you're lined up, because it's really easy to get off center. You happen to skip 2 rows on this side and only 1 on this side. You get down here and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm off. And then it's hard to even figure out where you went off, because these are a lot different than diamonds. They're so flexible and mobile and move independently of each other that if you pull one tight, the one above it can kind of disappear or become a little hidden. So my suggestion would be to, tie off. Your first knot here, first knot there. Just do, alternate sides. And just to make sure you keep it even all the way down, because it is really easy to lose yourself and get off by 1 or more, and then you may not realize it. You may not realize it until the bottom, and that is a bummer, because then, especially if you used hard knots to untie, you got to go back up. So I just used knots up top, pulled down hard to create the channel, and then I just did interlocks. Some people do SIs, some people string it to the inside, which I think is impressive. I couldn't do it. I did a couple, and I'm like, that's going to give me a headache. And I'm like, I think interlocks will do the trick. So I don't know if you'll be able to see, but knots to about here, pulling tight, and then just standard interlocks, skipping. Here I skipped two rows, 1 row, mostly 1 row down. But in one spot I skipped 2, maybe 2 spots. Yep, up here I skipped 2 as well. Just to help give it a little depth. And you can make it whippier. You can make it deeper. You can do a lot of things. You could make it, tighter channel, looser channel, whatever you're looking for, you can do. It strings like normal mesh, and it really comes down to how you string it. But it's not as hard as you might think. It may look intimidating, but once you get your hands in, and you start working on it, it's really not. Don't overthink it, like the guy said, and keep it simple. You can, especially your first pass, keep it simple. Just interlocks is fine. Some knots, some anchor knots, and then interlocks, And then next time, try to go, special interlocks or to the inside and doubling up or whatever you're going to do. Not as hard as you might think, so don't stress about that. Buy a piece and have at it. Armor Mesh, thank you for sending these over. I appreciate it. I love it. It's an incredibly cool product, and I hope it blows up for you. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.